March 15th is not a quiet date. It is the moment Jupiter moves forward, and the wheel that has felt jammed for nearly 6 months begins to turn again. What was delayed can now begin to move. What felt blocked can now begin to open. And for 3 signs in particular, this is not a subtle shift. This is the sound of a locked door giving way. If you have felt like life has been testing your patience, your faith, your finances, and your sense of timing, you must understand what is happening now. The wait was not empty. The pause was not punishment. Jupiter has reached the threshold, and the moment you have been standing in front of is finally opening. The emotional current is abundance rising through a karmic shift, and the symbolic thread is the doorway. That matters, because Jupiter direct is never just about luck falling from the sky. It is about access. It is about expansion returning. It is about the universe placing you before a doorway and asking one question that changes everything. Are you ready to walk through as the person this season has shaped you into? Or are you still trying to enter the future carrying the fear that belonged to your past? That is the real story of this moment. Not just opportunity, but readiness. Not just blessing, but capacity. Not just wealth, but the version of you who can finally hold it. Jupiter is the planet of growth, wisdom, faith, higher vision, and the widening of life itself. When it slows into retrograde, you do not always see dramatic collapse. Often what happens is stranger, quieter, and more difficult to explain. Momentum dries up. Plans that once felt certain begin to wobble. Money takes longer to arrive. A chapter that looked ready to bloom hangs in the air without opening. You may have kept moving, kept working, kept hoping, but somewhere inside you sensed that the larger current was not flowing the way it should. It was as if you were standing in front of a doorway that should have opened months ago. Hand on the handle, feeling the pressure on the other side, yet nothing moved. That is what these past months have been for so many people. Not failure, but suspension. Not rejection, but recalibration. Jupiter retrograde has a way of revealing where your faith was conditional, where your confidence was tied to immediate proof, where your abundance mindset still hid an old fear of not having enough, not being enough, not arriving in time. It slows the outer world so the inner world can speak, and that process is rarely comfortable. It can feel like silence from life itself. It can feel like asking the universe for a sign and receiving only delay. It can feel like watching other people move ahead while your own chapter sits unopened. You may have felt it in the form of financial hesitation. Money may have come in slower than expected, or the effort required to earn it may have felt heavier than usual. You may have questioned your path, your business, your gifts, your timing, even your worth. You may have wondered why doors kept almost opening, then stalling. Why conversations sounded promising, then dissolved. Why hope rose, then dropped back into uncertainty. Jupiter retrograde often does this. It does not just test your ability to desire more. It tests your ability to remain internally expanded while the outer world appears contracted. That is a spiritual discipline most people do not realize they are being taught. But now the energy changes. And when Jupiter moves direct, it is not merely that things get easier, it is that movement returns to what was spiritually ripening behind the scenes. The doorway that would not open begins to respond. The lock clicks. The air on the other side becomes real. You are no longer being asked to wait in the same way. You are being asked to notice, to prepare, to move differently. Because Jupiter direct does not reward the most desperate. It responds to the most aligned. It amplifies what has matured. It expands what has been internally clarified. And that means what arrives now may come with startling speed precisely because it took so long to become ready. Before this moment, many of you have been living in a private pressure chamber. You may have felt chest heaviness without clear reason, restlessness at night, strange dreams that seem to repeat the same emotional lesson in different forms, an ache in your stomach when thinking about money or the future, a tension in the throat around conversations you knew needed to happen but kept postponing. You may have noticed bursts of hope followed by deep fatigue, as if your spirit knew change was near, but your body was exhausted from carrying uncertainty for too long. This is not imaginary. This is how a karmic threshold often feels before it opens. The soul senses motion before the mind can explain it. You may also have felt a growing intolerance for what once seemed manageable. Jobs that drained you, relationships that kept you guessing, habits that kept you small. The things you used to negotiate with now feel heavier. The emotional cost is more obvious. This is part of Jupiter's return to direct motion as well. Expansion begins long before manifestation. First, your inner world can no longer comfortably fit inside the old room. First, the doorway becomes emotionally necessary before it becomes physically accessible. That is what many of you have been living through. A quiet but undeniable realization that your old life, your old level, your old story is no longer wide enough for who you are becoming. Now let us talk about what is shifting. The shift is not just external wealth. It is restored circulation. Jupiter direct restarts the flow of faith, opportunity, support, and momentum. It brings movement to plans that were delayed. It helps decisions solidify. It reveals which opportunities were worth waiting for and which ones only looked appealing because you were are tired of waiting. This is abundance with discernment, not random excess. This is not the universe throwing glitter at your problems. This is the universe opening the correct doorway and asking whether you can recognize it without trying to drag 5 old doors open at the same time. That matters because whenever abundance begins to rise, fear often rises with it. Some of you have been so shaped by waiting that movement itself now feels suspicious. Some of you have spent so long in uncertainty that receiving feels almost unsafe. When things start to improve, an old reflex may whisper that it will not last, that it is too good, that it will be taken away. Watch that. That voice is not prophecy. It is memory. Jupiter direct is not just opening outer doors. It is exposing the inner locks that scarcity built inside you. And if you do not notice them, you may stand in front of a new doorway while still behaving like someone trapped outside. This is why the emotional field of this transit can feel so intense. You may notice sudden clarity arriving in waves. One day you feel energized, visionary, almost electric. The next day you feel raw, reflective, even tearful. Old disappointments may surface right before new blessings appear. You may think about the version of you who waited, doubted, overgave, minimized your needs, or stayed loyal to outcomes that were not loyal to you. There can be grief here, not because nothing is opening, but because something is. And whenever a new doorway appears, it quietly confirms that the old room really is over, mentally. This may show up as stronger intuition and less tolerance for confusion. You may suddenly know what decision needs to be made, what offer needs to be accepted, what habit needs to end, what conversation needs honesty. Spiritually, you may feel a return of trust after a season where trust had to survive without visible support. Energetically, you may feel your focus sharpening. The fog that hung around your plans begins to thin. Physically, the body may still be catching up. Fatigue can linger. The nervous system may be sensitive. You may need more water, more sleep, more grounding, more silence than usual. Do not mistake that for weakness. The body often softens when a long-held internal brace finally begins to release. And now, we need to speak clearly about money, because the title of this moment is not symbolic only. Wealth is part of this story, but you must understand wealth in Jupiter's language. Wealth is not only cash. It is support, access, mobility, options, timing, confidence, resource flow, and the ability to say yes to life without immediately collapsing into fear. When Jupiter moves direct, money stories begin to loosen. Delayed payments may resume. Work may begin to pay more fairly. A business idea may finally find traction. A contract, raise, opening, or a collaboration may arrive after a long stretch of uncertainty. For some, this will be obvious. For others, it will begin as a restored sense of possibility that then creates the outer shift. Watch where your beliefs about receiving are being tested. If an opportunity appears, do not instantly shrink it to fit your old expectations. If a financial conversation arises, do not underprice yourself simply because the past few months trained you to be grateful for crumbs. Jupiter direct asks for a wider posture. Not arrogance, but willingness. Not fantasy, but permission. Wealth begins to flow more consistently when you stop treating your own expansion like a threat. That may mean protecting resources more wisely, spending with more intention, ending patterns of emotional spending or fear-based hoarding. It may mean finally investing in the thing that expands your future instead of only managing the emergencies of the present. There is also a deeper financial lesson here. The doorway to wealth is rarely opened by desperation alone. It opens through self-respect, long-range vision, wise risk, and the refusal to keep attaching your future to environments that diminish your value. Jupiter direct supports growth, but it will also magnify whatever foundation you are standing on. If your financial habits are chaotic, chaos becomes louder. If your earning model is aligned growth becomes stronger. So this is a powerful time to review what abundance actually needs from you. Cleaner boundaries, better timing, more faith, less leakage, more structure around what you build. The blessing is real, but blessings move best through clear channels. Your body is part of this story too. The body always knows when a threshold is near. You may have felt sleep patterns shifting, waking between certain hours, dreaming more vividly, feeling drained for no obvious reason, or carrying a buzz of nervous anticipation in the chest and solar plexus. Some of you have been overstimulated by uncertainty. Others have gone emotionally numb just to keep functioning. As Jupiter turns direct, the body may begin releasing stored emotional pressure. Tears may come easier. Deep breaths may suddenly feel available again. You may realize how much tension you have normalized. Listen carefully. The body is not a side note in spiritual seasons like this. It is the messenger standing at the doorway first. Hydration matters now. Rest matters now. Grounding your nervous system matters now. Do not try to outrun the opening by exhausting yourself. Some people sabotage abundance because they only know how to chase, not how to receive. They meet a new doorway with old panic. Do not do that. Let your body participate in the expansion. Slow your breathing. Eat in a way that stabilizes you. Get sunlight where possible. Reduce the noise around you. Protect your mornings. Notice where your body tightens in certain conversations, offers, or environments. Your intuition often speaks through contraction before your mind catches up. Trust the signals. The doorway that is meant for you will not require you to abandon your body to walk through it. Relationships and communication now become one of the sharpest mirrors of all. Jupiter direct can magnify not only opportunities, but truths. Some relationships will begin to warm again, clarify again, move again. Others will reveal that they were only sustainable inside stagnation. That is important. There are connections that survive when nothing is changing because nobody has to show their real capacity. But once momentum returns, character becomes visible. Who celebrates your expansion? Who becomes distant when you stop shrinking? Who supports your future instead of only bonding with your wounds? Watch this carefully. The doorway of abundance often reveals the architecture of your relationships more clearly than hardship did. You may notice mixed signals becoming intolerable now. Vague language, emotional inconsistency, half-commitment, passive support. Inconvenient affection may suddenly feel more painful than before. That is because Jupiter expands awareness. You are being shown the difference between people who truly want your growth and people who only liked the version of you that was easier to control, easier to access, easier to outgrow. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. In communication, watch actions over words. Watch consistency over charm. Watch whether people can meet you in reality, not just in fantasy. A real relationship can handle movement. An immature one often begins to fracture the moment you stop waiting and start walking. For some of you, this transit will bring one honest conversation that changes everything. A truth about commitment. A truth about money between partners. A truth about what the future requires. A truth about whether someone is truly capable of walking through the next doorway with you. Do not avoid this. Jupiter direct rewards honesty because honesty creates capacity. Where there has been silence, let there be clarity. Where there has been confusion, ask the direct question. Where there has been distance, notice whether the gap closes naturally or only when you do all the emotional labor. The answers are not here to punish you. They are here to free the path. And that brings us to guidance. What should you do with this energy now? First, stop treating every delay from the past 6 months as evidence against your future. Some things were paused because they needed ripening. Some doors stayed shut because they were not your doors. Some silences were protective. Second, pay close attention to what begins moving naturally now. Not what you can force, but what responds. What returns your effort? What opens with less struggle? Third, simplify. Jupiter is abundance, yes, but true expansion often begins through cleaner focus. You do not need 10 new plans. You need the right doorway. Have the one conversation you have been postponing. Review the one financial pattern that keeps draining you. Recommit to the one vision that still feels alive beneath the fatigue. Journal what the waiting season actually taught you, because if you do not name the lesson, you may repeat the delay inside the blessing. Protect your energy from people who only become curious when your life starts improving. Rest more than your impatience thinks you should. Let your decisions come from clarity, not the adrenaline of finally feeling movement again. And above all, do not chase what keeps making you prove your worth. The right doorway does not need you to bleed for access. Now, let us move into the 3 zodiac signs most affected by this opening. Cancer, Taurus, and Pisces. Cancer, this doorway is deeply personal for you. Jupiter moving forward touches your sense of emotional safety, self-trust, visibility, and future direction in a way that can feel almost overwhelming because it is so needed. The past several months may have felt like standing in front of your own life without being able to fully enter it. You may have questioned where you were going, whether your timing was off, whether the support you needed would ever arrive. There may have been money pressure, emotional overthinking, and a constant tension between protecting yourself and wanting to expand. But now something shifts. The doorway begins to open, not because you forced it, but because you have been changed by the waiting. This season is teaching you that softness is not weakness, and caution is not the same as hiding. Wealth can begin flowing to you through greater self-belief, more visible opportunities, supportive connections, and decisions that stop treating your dreams like a burden. In love, stop translating inconsistency as depth. In work, stop underestimating what your sensitivity can build. The universe is not asking you to become louder. It is asking you to become more available to the life that has been trying to reach you. Taurus, your reading is about worth becoming tangible. Jupiter direct for you feels like a locked financial and emotional doorway finally giving way after a season of internal. You may have spent these months confronting quiet fears around stability, value, and trust. Perhaps money did not move as quickly as you hoped. Perhaps you kept doing the right things while secretly wondering why the return felt delayed. Perhaps relationships exposed where you have been giving more consistency than you were receiving. This shift brings movement, but it also asks you to stop building your future around what is familiar instead of what is fertile. Wealth may come through work opportunities, improved cash flow, stronger negotiations, or a sudden recognition of where you have been settling beneath your actual value. This is not the time to cling to old scarcity identities. This is the time to become more exact, more discerning, more willing to let quality replace comfort. In love, watch whether someone can meet your standards without making you feel guilty for having them. In money, let your choices reflect your true worth, not just your fear of instability. The doorway opening for you is not only about more, it is about better, Pisces. For you, this is spiritual and material at once. Jupiter moving forward can feel like your soul finally receiving the green light after months of fog. Emotional processing and invisible preparation. You may have felt suspended between worlds, sensing that something significant was coming but unable to anchor it in visible reality. Dreams may have intensified. Intuition may have sharpened. Exhaustion may have deepened. There's been a strange mixture of hope and heaviness. As if your spirit was packing for a journey your life had not yet announced. This moment changes that. The doorway opening now can bring expansion through creativity, healing, recognition, financial restoration, and clearer direction. But you must be careful not to romanticize every open path. Jupiter direct can increase possibility, and for Pisces, that sometimes means your imagination runs ahead of your discernment. Choose what has substance. Choose what respects your energy. Choose what does not require you to abandon your peace in order to feel chosen. In relationships, trust what repeated behavior has been teaching you. In abundance, stop waiting for permission from people who do not understand your vision. What is meant for you now is asking for embodiment, not just belief. And even if your sign was not one of those three, do not assume this doorway is not touching you. Everyone is feeling this shift somewhere. Everyone is being asked where they have confused delay with denial. Everyone is being shown what kind of future they are emotionally prepared to enter. Jupiter direct is not magic for the passive. It is momentum for the aligned. It is grace for the willing. It is expansion for the person who can finally stop bowing to the story that said nothing good arrives without pain. So as this new chapter begins, notice what changes in the space around you. Notice which emails arrive, which conversations become clear, which ideas wake up again, which opportunities suddenly feel possible, which emotional weights no longer fit in your chest the same way. Notice which doorways open quietly, without the drama you expected. Sometimes the greatest turning points do not arrive like thunder. They arrive like a lock releasing after months of pressure. Soft, precise, undeniable. This is your reminder that the wait was not wasted. The 6-month pause was shaping your eyes, your standards, your stamina, your faith, your discernment, and your capacity to receive what you once would have mishandled. Jupiter moving forward is not simply the end of delay. It is the beginning of rightful motion. The doorway is opening now. Do not stand there rehearsing old fears while the future calls your name from the other side. Walk toward what expands you. Walk away from what keeps asking you to shrink. Let wealth come not only as money, but as peace, clarity, support, options, truth, and aligned timing. Let your relationships reveal whether they can grow with you. Let your body tell you what your mind keeps trying to override. Let your spirit remember that abundance is not a fantasy when it arrives through integrity. March 15th marks the turning. Jupiter has moved forward. The threshold is real. The doorway is open. And what enters your life next may carry the answer to every silent prayer you thought the universe had forgotten. Do not ignore this moment. Do not reduce it. Do not meet it as the person who is left waiting in the dark. Meet it as the person who survived the waiting, learned the lesson, and is finally ready to step through.